Chris and Chris Talk Movies.
Hello, and welcome back to the podcast. My name is Chris Ferry, and of course, this is my co-host.
My name is Chris Huddleston.
And today we are talking to, I already forgot when is it?
Kiss Kiss Bang Bang, 2005.
You literally 1 second ago told me what year it is.
Hey, we're getting
Today
old.
Today we are very excited to be talking to you about the 2005 action noir, neo-noir? Comedy, Kiss
Mystery
Kiss Bang Bang. This is as good as it gets, folks.
Rotten Tomatoes lists it as mystery and thriller LGBTQ, which we'll get to that. But all right, so you want me to do the synopsis?
No, let me just set it up again.
Oh, okay. All right.
And today we are both very excited to be talking to you about the movie Kiss Kiss Bang Bang.
Let's go. Hurry up. It's not my fault. Just shut up and run.
Hold it right there!
Harry was a small-time crook.
Oh, boy.
Till he opened the door
Oh, no, we're not ready for your audition.
Just take him. He's ready. You ready, right?
to a really big break.
Quit acting like the good guy. You got your partner killed. You killed him.
See, this is what I'm talking about. Old school method. Get me Gay Perry on the phone.
But he'll need a real cop
Detective lessons tomorrow for your acting.
Oh, you're the consultant.
if he wants to act the part.
You must be
Gay Perry?
still gay?
Me? No. I just like the name so much, I can't get rid of it.
So what do you do?
I'm a private detective. She thinks I'm a detective.
Of all the idiot things to do.
My sister was
Honey,
murdered. Are you gonna help me?
I gotta check my schedule.
Can you help me, Harry? Because if you're not gonna help me, find somebody else.
So sometimes I have other. My caseload is pretty.
Thank you.
From Shane Black, the creator of Lethal Weapon,
Do not play detective. Moron. Go home before the bad guys do something bad to you.
2 corpses in 3 hours. I mean, that's unusual, right?
Yes.
comes a mystery.
It's a frame up. First things first. Do you have the corpse?
I got rid of it.
You threw it away. Look up idiot in the dictionary. You know what you'll find?
A picture of me?
No. The definition of the word idiot. Ow!
That starts with a kiss
Why'd you lie to me?
It was an excuse to stay around you, so I mean, I think.
Ow! Did I just cut off your finger?
Yeah. It's on the floor. Pick it up. Pick it up.
and ends with a bang.
Where is the girl? You put a live round in that gun.
Oh yeah, there was like an 8% chance.
Who taught you math?
Robert Downey Jr.,
What do you think? I'm stupid?
Val Kilmer,
Yes. I think you're stupid.
Kiss Kiss Bang Bang.
Kiss me. What? Kiss me.
No. These lessons suck.
All right, now will you please give us a synopsis?
I will. So it was written and directed by Shane Black. We'll probably talk about him some. Stars Robert Downey Jr., Val Kilmer, Michelle Monaghan, Corbin Burnson. And the synopsis from Rotten Tomatoes is 2-bit crook Harry Lockhart, played by Robert Downey Jr., stumbles into an audition for a mystery film while on the run from the cops. Winning the part, he lands in Hollywood, where he's flung into a tangled, murderous conspiracy with his childhood sweetheart, Harmony Lane, Michelle Monaghan, and hard-boiled private eye Perry Van Shrike, Val Kilmer. This deadpan, affectionate parody of film noir tropes is named for film critic Pauline Kael's influential 1968 collection of film reviews and essays, which I did not know until
I did not know that either.
So I had seen this previously when it first came out. I don't remember if you had seen it or if this was a first-time watch.
No, I had seen it before, yes,
Okay.
but it's not like I'd probably just seen it the once.
Same here. I didn't remember much. So what did you think on the second viewing?
Well, I think there's a reason why it's not a part of like people's beloved canon. I think the stuff it does well, it does very well. And I think that the LBGTQ, as they put it, element of it doesn't age very well.
No.
So there's something about it that thinks it's very clever that I don't remember whether or not it grated on me the first time I saw it, but it grated on me a little bit this time. But slipping back to the positive side of the street, I think the stuff it does well, it does really well. I think that, Robert Downey Jr.'s clearly, I think he's a little miscast in this. I don't think it was written for the type of character that has become that guy's wheelhouse. And I don't mean Tony Stark, but I mean, I think the character on the page is dumber than Robert Downey Jr. is or plays habitually. Mm-hmm. So what I love about Robert Downey Jr. is he always brings a real sparkle, and the fast-paced dialogue and the repartee he nails, as he always does, in my opinion. He plays very well off of Val Kilmer, who I think really aces this movie. So the scenes where the two of them are kind of fast talking back and forth. Oh yeah, see that? Those are wonderful, and I think they're really soar. And the chemistry that Robert Downey Jr. has with
Michelle Monaghan.
Michelle Monaghan is terrific. Also, I think it's just the scenes in which it feels a little implausible. I mean, one of the running jokes is that Robert Downey Jr. is a real Dumbo, and Val Kilmer is constantly pointing that out. And I think on the page, he really is supposed to be not dim-witted, but pretty slow on the uptake, not a quick thinker. But Robert Downey Jr. is. Mm-hmm. So that's sort of my, I enjoyed watching those three people sail through this movie and have a lot of fun with it. And I think that the writing at its best is snappy and surprising and sardonic and sarcastic and, in delightful ways. But the other parts of it don't age so well. And it's not Robert Downey Jr.'s best work. I mean, he does fine. He does a good job in it. It's just, I don't think it's the right fit. What'd you think?
I think I would disagree a little bit on it not being the right fit. I agree with you that Robert Downey Jr. playing dumb, that's not him. I think this feels like, okay, so this was 3 years before Iron Man. So this was still when Robert Downey Jr. was kind of viewed as damaged goods. And, nobody, younger people wouldn't realize this, but, there was the studio did not want Robert Downey Jr. to be Iron Man because they were like, he had all these drug problems and he's an insurance risk and all this. And Jon Favreau, really had to fight for him to get that role. So this was still when Robert Downey Jr. was kind of out in the wilderness, and I do think this feels like a pre-Iron Man role for Robert Downey Jr., if that makes sense, as opposed to a post-Iron Man role. Because as you said, where it feels very much like the kind of roles that he played, not to say that he doesn't play these kind of roles now, but the snappy dialogue is the thing where I felt watching this, he's very, very, very natural with delivering Shane Black's dialogue. Mm-hmm. I feel, but like you said, him being kind of dim-witted doesn't really fly because we know that Robert Downey Jr. isn't. Also, as you said, so I'll say this first. It has a bunch of Shane Black tropes. So we watched The Long Kiss Goodnight a few weeks ago. Takes place at Christmas time. I don't know if every movie that he has done has taken place at Christmas time, but most of them do. That's what he wrote and directed Iron Man 3, which I think takes place at Christmas time.
Oh, yeah, probably.
Yeah. So I'm pretty sure that it does. So, you've got the Christmas thing, you've got the kind of buddy cop thing, even though they're not both cops. But as you said, the thing that's and I think the chemistry between the three of them is all really good.
Yeah.
The story doesn't really, the plot doesn't really make sense, but you're not really watching a movie. You're watching a movie like this to see the three of them together,
Right.
But definitely the thing that definitely stood out to me the most as a negative and what doesn't play well is the gay joke. So Val Kilmer's character is gay, and they call him Gay Perry. Like right off, they introduce him as Gay Perry, which he doesn't seem to care about that. He doesn't seem to be offended. But there's no reason for his character to be gay other than to make jokes about him being gay. That's the only... So it's just like, I don't really know what the point of that was.
In 2005... I mean, that's some 1985 stuff, right? I mean, if Eddie Murphy did a movie and there was a character in 85 or 3 or 81, and there was a character named Gay Perry, that would kind of square. I'm not saying it's right or even funny at that time, but in 2005, like, the joke is that he's gay, and that's odd enough that everybody, that's like Jimmy, 2 times. That's the crazy quirk this guy has, is that he's homosexual. You know what I mean? I was scratching my head the whole time too. And they make really sophomoric jokes about it all the way through. And I think that the idea that Val Kilmer is just clearly it plays super competent and high status and smart and above it all, and it all rolls off him. He doesn't stoop to ever take the bait at it, is supposed to sort of balance it out somehow or bless it or be like, no, but see, he's not fazed by it. I'm like, no, the point is that you keep hammering on this 6th grade joke. 6th grade from our 6th graders today don't joke about gay stuff. That was our 6th grade.
And it serves absolutely no purpose.
I know. I was like, is that the best you can write? Like, you have other funny stuff in this. Why is this?
Yeah, he's clearly a smart writer, so it's not like a good writer. So it's not like, that was the thing that really stood
it's never,
out.
It's never like, I mentioned Eddie Murphy films. I mean, some of those are through the lens of today are actually offensive.
Well, and especially a stand-up,
And I didn't feel like this ever offended me in that way. I just thought this is lazy and dumb.
They don't do anything to make his
so egregious that it's it's very.
And it's not like they do anything to make his character stereotypically. He's just Val Kilmer.
I mean,
but,
you wouldn't.
But it's just like, hey, guess what? He's gay. But it's not like they do, anything to like.
Well, here's an
draw
example.
Attention to.
So there's one point where they are trying to hide a body. One of them or both of them is being framed for a murder, and they've got the body that has been planted in like Robert Downey Jr.'s bathtub or something. By the way, we spoil these movies.
It's 18 years old, so
right. And so that's how these two guys are finding themselves trying to get a body into a trunk. And a patrol car, they're in an alley. Patrol car pulls by.
Oh, yeah, I forgot about
sort of
this scene.
Slows down. And in a moment, to sort of distract, Val Kilmer says, kiss me, right? And he grabs him and kisses Robert Downey Jr. So the cops go, oh, look at these two lovebirds, and kind of drive on. And then there's a moment, a Warner Brothers, like Looney Tunes moment afterwards, where Robert Downey Jr. is like, puh, puh, puh. And I'm like, come on. Yeah. Really? I mean, it's just, dopey sophomoric stuff. But
yeah,
I didn't think it ruined the movie. I thought it just didn't age very well. And I thought the funniest stuff in the movie really shone. So I was sort of disappointed, and I'm like, well, I mean, if you can write the funny stuff, I wish you'd have taken another pass. I guess I think they obviously thought this was among the funny stuff. I don't know.
I guess, yeah.
Yeah. Anyway,
it has this nice neo-noir is a genre that I think is a lot of fun. So it plays with a lot of tropes of that, and so it's it's a fun movie, and he obviously likes this kind of thing because he also wrote and directed The Nice Guys, which is I think is a very similar movie to this.
Yeah.
It's that same kind of buddy shtick, and he does the same thing in that one, if I recall right, where Ryan Gosling is the dumb guy,
Right.
and Russell Crowe is the smart, streetwise guy.
Right. That's a little bit more Laurel and Hardy than this one feels like. Do you think so? Or
Yeah. I mean, it's been quite a while since I saw that, and I watched that movie on an airplane, which is not always the greatest place to watch a movie.
Yeah, probably.
But yeah,
But
it was
I
funny
agree with-
because I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt.
No, go ahead. Go ahead.
I was just going to say I remembered really, really liking this, and also I kind of feel like once you get to a certain age, you're trapped in this kind of view where you think everything happened 3 years ago, and it's like, oh, this was 18 years ago. I can't believe it was that,
I know.
that long ago. But I remember really, really liking it at the time, and I didn't remember, the gay jokes. But I still liked it. I mean, this time around.
Yeah,
I don't know.
I mean,
I don't
think
feel
it was
like
entertaining. I actually thought it was probably. I haven't seen The Nice Guys in quite a while, but I think if you had to ask me to pick it out of a hat, I'd have said this was more entertaining than The Nice Guys.
Yeah,
but
I would say this is not, which he didn't direct, but it's not as good as The Long Kiss Goodnight.
I agree. I think there's just something about and that's such a weird movie in so many ways, but it just comes together, and I think Geena Davis really carries it. We had mentioned this before, but the movie that she had done with him prior to this was Cutthroat Island.
Cutthroat
right?
Island, yeah.
And it is.
Did he write it? Cutthroat Island? Because Cutthroat Island was
he directed
Jean de Bont or whatever,
right?
Who
So
directed?
he did not. Yes, that's right. It's the director. It's not the writer. He didn't write Kiss Kiss Bang Bang, and nor did he direct. No, he didn't write The Long Kiss Goodnight. He did write the.
He didn't direct it.
All right.
Yeah.
My name is Chris Ferry, and this is my co-host. You know what? I don't even know what I'm talking about, folks. It doesn't matter.
Yeah.
It's not the same person.
Right.
So yeah,
But yeah,
I mean,
Geena
he
Davis had worked with the same director, John de Bont, or however you say his name, on The Long Kiss Goodnight and Cutthroat Island.
So it doesn't that has no relevance here because it's not the same director and it's not the same star.
Right.
But
it is the same writer for one
But
of
it's
those.
supposedly a terrible movie, and it's actually supposedly a terrible enough movie that I don't want to watch it.
Yeah.
Even for this podcast, which is about stinkers sometimes.
Yeah. Sometimes we watch good movies.
Mm-hmm.
Long Kiss Goodnight was a good movie.
I thought so too, yeah.
A non-stinker. And this one isn't a stinker either. I mean, it's not like essential viewing, but
no, it's it's sort of a forgotten. I mean, not lost movie, but one of those movies that I don't think people think of. There's other things in that genre that people are going to go to first.
Right. And for these actors too, if you're this is definitely not the best thing that Val Kilmer has done. This is definitely not the best thing that Robert Downey Jr. has done. This is not the best thing that Michelle Monaghan has done.
Right.
But it doesn't have to be. It's a pretty light film to me.
And I think ultimately I ultimately enjoyed it more than I sort of expected to.
Mm-hmm.
I watched the trailer and the Gay Perry stuff came back, and I was like, oh, right. I don't know. Is this going to irritate me all the way through? And then I watched them like, a couple little cringes, but otherwise it was like, it's okay.
Yeah.
I don't know. This stuff didn't used to get to me so much, and that's something recently it just feels really lazy to me when people are like, everybody thinks this, right? And you're like, well, no, not really, not anymore.
And you just can't imagine that in a movie now.
Right.
It's hard to imagine that in a movie now.
Well, but you put your finger right on it too. It's just like it's not just gay jokes. It's lazy material, right? It has that. I know this sort of a buzzword, but that kind of punch down feel. Mm-hmm. Like make fun of the kid in the schoolyard with the funny glasses. You're like, is that the best you got? Because that's not surprising, or you know what I mean?
Yeah. And especially when you know that this writer and all these people are above that. Like I can see, I don't know if these guys are still making movies, but I could see, you know, sort of around the time. Did you ever see any of those guys were called Broken Lizard? Like they did the Super Troopers, and did you ever see any of those movies?
You know what's funny? I started watching Super Troopers, and I think I might have actually been too high to get through it. I just didn't finish it.
I mean, that's the kind of thing I could see those guys doing. Like it would be a lot of gay jokes and stuff, you know?
Yeah.
And I think they did the Dukes of Hazzard movie too, and I don't know. But it just kind of seems like that's stuff that just seems really out of place now. We're probably spending too much time on this because it's a small part of the movie. You know,
yeah.
It's not, maybe the gay jokes are maybe like 3% of the dialogue or something. But
aside from the character being named Gay Perry.
Yeah, yeah.
But yeah, I mean, you mentioned it earlier, but the plot of this one is so labyrinthine that it completely lost me. There's like a dead body, but there's a number of different young women that look like the dead body, and then you think, oh well, no, that was your sister posing as the daughter who hired and I'm just like, I don't know what's going on. And at the end, Robert Downey Jr.'s character breaks the fourth wall, and narrates also. Yeah, the audience is like, "Oh, have you figured it out yet? You know, have you put the clues together?" And I'm like, "Dude, you lost me about an hour." You know, I'm not sure I even care at this point. I know you're going to solve it, and I'm looking forward to seeing what that is. But
and maybe I'm just not smart enough, but this often happens to me with these kind of mystery movies and also spy movies. Spy movies, I never feel like I ever know what the hell is going on. You know what I mean? It's just like, I don't. This is the bad guy, and that's the good guy, and I don't know. He wants the nuclear codes for this reason or whatever. You know, and I was just like, I don't know what's happening. You know, like the Mission Impossible movies and that kind of stuff. I was just thinking lost about
that first Mission Impossible movie with Tom Cruise, where they had the masks, right? So you would literally be talking to the guy played by another actor, and then he would go. And it would be Tom Cruise underneath. Yeah. Like, I mean, it was laughable. You're like, wow.
You froze up.
And they'd have a voice thing to explain the voice, and you're like, okay, I don't know, guys.
Yeah,
but I think they've evolved that a little bit to car chases and trains going out of planes, and I mean,
I don't know if they do the
stunt work is just so crazy. I think they lost the mask thing.
I don't know if they do the mask thing anymore, but that kind of thing is always funny, where it's like the person's a different size, and you know, unless you're
totally
like exactly
different body type,
unless they're exactly the same body type and size, it's like that's not going to work. But I don't know. I guess that's suspension of disbelief. So.
Yeah.
I don't know. It feels like with this one, there's not really a lot to delve into because I couldn't exactly tell you the plot, you know, beyond what we had in the synopsis, like if you held a gun to my head.
Yeah, I mean, it's a noir mashup. I mean, it starts with a body and you know, private eye hired to solve a murder, and at one point there's a suicide that another character is convinced was a murder, and you know, and then it wasn't that person, it was actually the sister posing as the daughter for reasons, and so it does that where it's just constantly switching back on. There's full of red herrings, and I mean that makes it kind of fun. But it did lose me. Mm-hmm. It did lose me, and like I say, I don't want to be harping on it. Like I think I'll recommend this film. I just that wasn't really the point of it for me. I wasn't in it for the mystery. You know, it wasn't a Poirot thing where I'm like, oh, was it Madame Rouge or was it Monsieur? I didn't get hooked in by it, so it's basically I guess that's sort of a failure because you should care.
Yeah, but I think it's more about enjoying these characters together, you know, and that is they are fun together. In terms of neo noirs, this is one that I've thought about that maybe at some point that we could do. I don't know if you've seen it or not. Have you ever seen Inherent Vice with Joaquin Phoenix.
Do you know, I don't think I have seen that, and it got good reviews. It's a good movie.
Yeah,
right?
yeah. We should do it sometime. It's
Okay.
I think it'd be an interesting conversation. I think.
That. I feel like that came out at a time when I just wasn't watching a lot of movies for some reason.
Mm-hmm. I want to say it was around 2010, something like that.
Yeah.
It's definitely an interesting one.
I mean, let's see. Yeah, 2010, like Rachel would have been pregnant with Nova and Nate was a handful. I mean, I think I just was not going out to the movies a bunch.
Yeah. I didn't see it in the theater. I watched it at home, but so I don't know. Do we have anything else to say about this one? I feel like this is a really short.
No, I mean, but I would say, despite all my nitpicking with it, I did enjoy it. And I would, if you're into that genre and if you're looking for, I think the Robert Downey Jr. angle, like, oh, this was a pre-Iron Man movie, that's of interest now because he's officially post-Iron Man. So he's doing things like Oppenheimer, and he did, like, the Dr. Dolittle stuff, and which I didn't see, but looked crazy to me.
This definitely seems like, definitely feels like a guy of a different part of his career, stage of his career, which he was. I can't. He probably wouldn't do a small film like this now.
Well, maybe not. I think there's something liberating about the kind of success he had with that franchise and Iron Man. I'm sure he
can certainly do whatever he wants.
I think exactly. He certainly doesn't need the money. So, I mean, his agents are probably going to fight him on whatever he would want to do. But at his level, he's like, guys, I'll just go right across the street. So I would like, yes, sir, and how high? That's what I want from here on out, because that's how much money he's made.
I guess he has, like, I haven't seen Oppenheimer, but I guess that's a pretty small part that he had, I'm guessing.
It's supposed to be pretty good. It's supposed to be Oscar bait, and it's interesting that they are releasing it in July. I mean, they're releasing it.
It opened huge.
Season,
I mean, you had the whole Barbenheimer thing or whatever, so where they played off of each other. But I would love to see. Maybe he will, but I would love to see him. I think there's another Sherlock Holmes in the works, which I like those movies. So
those are entertaining.
I would have some fun seeing that, but I'd like to.
He keeps going back to do British accents.
He does an okay job with it.
He does an okay job of it, right? Mm-hmm. But in an era where we've got these Aussies that are vocal chameleons, and it's not just the Australians, but I mean there are people. It's like the joke is you fall in love with a character on the screen, and in the movie they're from Brooklyn or whatever, or Tennessee, and then you see an interview with them and Jimmy Fallon, and they're like, oh yeah, when I got this role, it was like, they're Australian, and that's the joke, is that it's always Australians. Once in a blue moon they're British or something, but it's.
I don't want to spoil an upcoming movie that we're going to do, but we're covering one with John Boyega, who is playing, an American drug dealer guy, and I don't know if you've gotten to this part yet, but he plays other characters in the movie too.
Oh no, I haven't gotten that far. Don't spoil it for me.
Okay. Yeah, I won't spoil it, but he does play multiple characters. And so
why don't we do that one next? Because we had talked about doing, what is it, 40?
65?
65. 41 hike. We started watching, at least I started watching 65, which is on Netflix. It's a Netflix original sci-fi. I don't want to spoil it for you, but you can pretty much figure it out just from watching the trailer of it. And I've sat down to sort of continue watching it twice now, and I'm just not. To me, and again, I have not finished the entire film. To me, it feels like this made for streaming content. That the performances are fine, the writing seems fine, the visual effects all look fine. It just doesn't get its hooks in me, And
I was reading today that it's some people saying it's kind of a snooze fest. So.
Just doesn't get its hooks in me, and you end up sort of scratching your head, being like, "Why isn't this better?" Mm-hmm. Like, not outraged, like, why didn't they bother? But sort of like it looked like everybody was giving this a good shot. Everybody's going for it, but I just find myself not super engaged.
Mm-hmm.
I can't put my finger on precisely why.
So yeah, we're not going to do that one. Have you watched anything else recently?
No, not really. I've been watching some series and stuff, but I haven't watched any other movies.
I watched this.
Watched all of the Indiana Jones, but we already talked about that.
Yeah, and this upcoming one, they cloned Tyrone that we're going to talk about. I watched that. And I don't know if I mentioned this on another episode, but I watched this new season of Black Mirror that I thought was really good.
I haven't watched any of that yet. That's in my queue.
There's only one that I thought was kind of not great, but the other ones I enjoyed a lot. I take that back. I haven't. There's one. One second. Right? There's one that I have not watched, one episode, but so I've watched. I think there's 6, and I've watched 5, and 4 out of 5 I thought were really good. The 5th one was entertaining, but I didn't think it was great.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think this season it's a shame with them that they do so few episodes.
Yeah, I agree. Are they toying with doing like a Red Mirror or something like that?
So that's what I was telling you. So they did one that. So I had read that they were considering doing just a complete spin-off show that they would call Red Mirror that would just be horror stuff. But I don't know if they scrapped that or if they're just testing this out or what. But with this season, they did one episode about this woman who finds this talisman that summons a demon, and they called that like a Red Mirror production. It's funny though. I mean, it's not really. I mean, it's horror, but I'd say horror comedy. But
yeah.
So I don't know if that was to test the waters to see what people thought, or I don't know if they're kind of running out of sci-fi ideas or what. But yeah, they were definitely
running out of sci-fi ideas, folks.
But there definitely were at least 2 of the episodes that I would say were not science fiction, and they were much more horror than. I mean, they're.
It's always been dark. I mean, it's always
been dark.
Metalhead in the original season was crazy, and
but neither of these have anything to do with technology. I think almost all the episodes there was some technological slant with it. Go ahead.
I was just going to, is a change of topic, but did you watch any of the congressional hearing on the UFOs that they did the other day?
No, I've just seen little. So is this guy a nut or what? I mean, was this guy credible? I've only just seen just little brief, mainly just people making jokes about it, but I didn't watch any of it.
Thing, but it definitely plays into all of the kind of conspiracy lore that has been a running trope the whole time, right? I mean, the military loops the president into it when they are elected. The military denies. But even if you zoom out a little bit, I mean, his assertion is that we have been collecting these crashed spacecraft in order to reverse engineer the technology. And that's a sci-fi trope that goes all the way back to the 40s. But even if you set that aside for the moment and you decide he's not credible, the military is now rebranding. Like UFO has a stigma of little green men that they're trying. So I forget what it is now, but they're like unexplained phenomena or aerial. It's like something different. But it's describing these unidentified flying objects that they are now saying, look, we want to be transparent about this. We want people to be aware that this is happening. So, I mean, we went pretty immediately from, oh, okay, ma'am, I'm sure you saw something in the sky. It was a weather balloon, right? To like, you're crazy. Oh, go get your tinfoil hat. To like, well, no, we actually, yes, this has been going on for a long time, and we have a lot of footage of it, and we don't know what it is, and we're not saying it's aliens, but we're saying we don't know what it is, So it's like, you do the math. It's pretty simple math. You're like, is it the Russians? I'm like, well, no, we're pretty sure it's not the Russians. The Chinese, no. Any world country, well, not that we can discern. Doesn't seem to be. I mean, these are things that don't conform to physics as we understand it. So they're like, it's aliens. They're like, well, we don't know what it is.
So what I wonder is, why are they saying this now? What's the...
I don't know.
Because it's not like... Because people have been obviously trying... I mean, our entire lives and beyond, people have been trying to figure out and trying to get the government to admit, that they have aliens or, UFOs exist or whatever. It seems that, like you say, they've always just denied it and tried to make the people look crazy, and all that. And I don't really understand what they have to, because it really has been in the last couple of years that they, have started saying these things, and I don't really know what the reasoning is.
What's the end game? I think my gut says one of two things. There's some big reveal coming that they feel like they need to be out in front of. And whether that is some foreign power, has gotten something, it seems like there's a forced reveal that's on the horizon, and they want to sort of lay the groundwork for that. Politically, to be like, well, technically we did tell you, that we were looking at something like this. But also probably they've run, scenarios in which if suddenly there was first contact, there would be mayhem. There would be chaos in the streets. So there's a part of me that the only thing I can think of to explain it, and I'm not suggesting that the Vulcans have landed. I'm just saying the only thing I can think of was why they would now suddenly change tack and be like, declassify this information and bother to rebrand the idea of a UFO is that, maybe they have reverse engineered some technology that they decide for climate change reasons or whatever we need to start implementing. And they don't want people to be terrified of this because it's associated with movie theater, alien, monsters from space. Yeah. I don't know. I haven't sat and thought about it long and hard, but I can't imagine another reason why you would.
Yeah,
change, because they're sense. As implausible as it feels. I mean, the government blithely lies to our faces about lots of things.
Sure.
I mean, we just come to expect it. So
it's not like they're just going to suddenly. It's like, we feel like being honest.
Yes.
The people need to know.
You know what, guys? We haven't been completely honest with you. That needs to change.
We're going to level with you. One thing that I've jokingly thought since Trump got elected was that there is either nothing, there's no evidence of aliens at all, or they hid it from Trump. Because there's no way he could have kept that secret. If we had aliens or whatever, he'd be like, everybody, here's my good friend Zeep Blop. He'll be secret no longer, or he would be flying around.
Have you heard the tape about him with the documents? It's like he said, I declassified them, there's nothing in there. And then somebody has a tape of him with some yahoos being like, now look at this. This is classified. I could have declassified it while I was president, but I didn't. So I guess I'm not supposed to be showing you this. But anyway, that's pretty neat, huh? Because this is nuclear codes. And you're like, what? Somebody get you a tape saying this is just insane.
If they had taken him to Roswell, like in Independence Day, he would have been like, can we use it against the Chinese? Can we use flying saucers, to go to, and
there were conversations to take the nuclear football away from him. It's like, well, can we not? And I mean, that's the president's got the finger that goes on the button. So there's a dude that follows him around with a briefcase they call the football that is mobile launch thing where he could launch nukes at a moment. He could turn to Larry or whatever the dude's name is and be like, here, we're doing this. And
he would show it to people at Mar-a-Lago.
Like, can we not have him have the football?
Yeah, because he showed it to people at Mar-a-Lago. He had the guy hanging around there, and he's like, "Hey, here's the nuclear football." But one thing that leads me to believe that they just didn't tell him is, I don't know if you. I mean, this was a small story among a million, but there was while he was in office, they did some kind of raid of immigrants at like a construction site or something like that. And they purposely did not tell Trump because they knew he would, they wanted to be a surprise, and so they could get these immigrants, and they knew that Trump would spoil it. He would go on Twitter or whatever, so they just didn't tell him. So I'm sure whatever there is in Area 51 or whatever, that they were just like, we cannot tell this guy because he will not be able to keep this a secret.
Right.
I kind of suspect that. I'm not saying there are aliens in there, but I'm sure there's stuff that we don't want the Russians to know about or whatever that they just didn't tell him. Is my suspicion.
What's really crazy about it is the 180 from like, you folks are smoking a little too much wacky tobacco. You're crazy. There's no such thing as little green men. To being like, well, we see a lot of things, and here's some footage of it.
Mm-hmm. And I think isn't there even like, isn't there like recording of Obama saying that there's like you said, where there's stuff like we don't know what it is. We don't know if it's foreign. We don't know. I'm pretty sure there's quotes from Obama.
I think he probably did. But it's not older than that.
Yeah.
We're talking the last 5-6 years maybe.
And you also have, very credible military pilots saying that they've seen stuff often.
Right. Not unstable sounding people. Like very competent sounding people being like. And the footage is really interesting too, because you hear their voices on it. They're like, you're seeing this? There's like a copy. It's like, whoa. They're like, how do you explain it? You got an explanation for that? No idea, man. Did we get that on camera? It's like, so you hear these guys, the chatter, and it's just, you're like, oh, snap. So then you go, so it's aliens. And they go, well, we don't know what it is. I'm like, okay, so if it's not alien, what is time travelers? I mean, aliens is a sort of a general term for all of that Star Trek stuff. Mm-hmm. It's got to be.
Oh, yeah.
It's got to be out of this Earth.
My grandparents, I think before I was born, and I asked them this story several times over the years, and their story never changed. They always told it exactly the same way. And my grandmother was the kind of person that if somebody had told her this, she would have just been like, I don't believe you. I think that's a lie. But she worked at a glass factory that no longer exists here in our town. And she worked, I think she was coming home at like 3 a.m. And there used to be, to get to where their house was, there used to be train tracks, which they've now taken out. But she said she's driving over the train tracks and saw like this bright light above her and saw a ship. And she said, for whatever reason, she stopped the car and got out. And she said this thing was completely silent, really bright lights. She said, it's 3 o'clock in the morning, but she could see all the blades of grass and stuff. And she said it just hovered. So I said, could it be? I asked, all kinds of things to try to be like,
could it have been a weather balloon?
Yeah, I mean, but I said, could it have been a helicopter? And she's like, no. She said it made no sound. And she said she watched it for, she didn't know how long. And then finally she realized, she was like, it's 3 o'clock in the morning and there's nobody else around. I'm here by myself. And so she went in the house and woke my grandfather up. and they both watched it out the window for a while.
Oh, he saw
and then
it too.
after he saw it too. And like I say, they both told it. You know, I asked them. My grandmother died in the 80s, and my grandfather lived to be 100 and died in 2012. And you know, I asked him the story after she had died. You know, he said exactly the same thing. So they watched it for a bit. It just kind of hovered, and then it just took off, and that was it. And so, I mean, I don't know what they saw, but I believe what they told me. You know, it wasn't something, like I said, they weren't the kind of people that would just like make something up, you know,
Right.
like that. So,
Right.
and they were just like, it wasn't anything, you know, that they were like, it wasn't an airplane. It wasn't somebody in a hot air balloon, you know, at night, with bright lights shining or whatever, you know, it wasn't a helicopter. So yeah. And my dad was in the Navy, and not that, you know, he was dealing with top secret stuff, but he said that, so he was in the Navy in the early 60s, and he said, you know, that even the stuff that he was dealing with was more advanced than what the public knew about. He said, you know, they definitely held back like what the capabilities were and the things that they had, because there was no real reason for the so he said, you know, it's hard to tell what, you know, this would have been, you know, he would have been before like the SR-71 Blackbird, which, you know, that thing was insane. And I think that was made in like 1968 or something. So I don't know, you know, and you have to wonder if there are things that we have that are top secret that only a select few people know what it is, you know. Maybe the fighter pilots that are seeing these things, maybe it's our own stuff and they're just not privy to it because they don't need to know.
Maybe,
you know?
but what's fascinating to me is the behavior of some of these objects.
Mm-hmm.
You know, like it'll be going remarkably fast and come to a sudden stop, like a dead stop, not showing any signs of deceleration, just. And likewise the other way around. There's not a, you know, parabolic period of acceleration. It seems to go from 0 to hypersonic, and can corner and turn in ways that we wouldn't think of any object that we could pilot, certainly at any speed, could do. So, you know, and some of them have no apparent means of propulsion, right? Like it might be an orb, it might be cigar-shaped or saucer-shaped or something, but no, like, you know, in all of our science fiction movies, there's basically some sort of a jet engine. There's some device that is causing the propulsion, and this doesn't seem to conform to any of that. So, I mean, I think in some ways they're closest to being honest when they say we don't know what it is.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, you wouldn't crack one of those things open if you could crack it open and there'd be a instruction manual in there. You know?
Yeah, true. And assuming there are beings in them and they're not drones or something.
Yeah, why would you assume that there were beings in them? Well, why wouldn't you just assume, I mean, we fly drones all over the place right now.
Sure.
And compared to that stuff, we're cavemen. Why would we assume that they are piloted?
Yeah. But assuming there are some, let's say, beings who could get here, you know, people are always worried that they're going to take us over or whatever. But I think they would more view us like we view a dog or something, you know, because they would, you know, they're obvious, if they can do these things, they're obviously going to be way advanced beyond us.
Did you ever read The Three Body Problem? It's a series
No.
of books by a Chinese author. They're great science fiction. But one of the really shocking feeling revelations in it is that, you know, the universe is full of all different kinds of civilizations at all different levels of advancement. And the same rule that applies on Earth really applies throughout the universe in the galaxy, which is there's a limited amount of resources. So every species in its nature is to expand, and eventually you're going to bump up against other things, and it's a competition of resources. So this idea of aliens, you know, that would be advanced enough they would probably just see us, you're right, as insect. We're just part of the native fauna and flora on this planet that has a certain set of resources, you know.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
But then, that being said, that's a very implicitly human way of looking at it. Well, I mean, how else are we are human, so we're gonna look at things in a human way. But kiss, kiss, bang, bang. Got a little far field.
We did, but we didn't have a lot
all
to
right.
say about this movie.
Yeah, I mean, what
But
is
yeah,
it?
but
You
I wanted
get
to
it.
ask you one other thing. This is related. This is more related to our podcast. I don't know how much attention you've been paying to the Screen Actors Guild and the Writers' Strike. Do you? And I just got to thinking. Do you, since you're an actor, do you know anybody who's in SAG?
Many.
Like, have you talked to anybody who's involved?
Yeah,
with
although
this or anything?
I don't know any actors that I'm not in like close contact with any actor friends that were on a show that's running, you know, that had to shut down, or that, you know, so the few people I know that work at that level have been doing it successfully enough that they're going to be okay. They can ride this out.
Yeah.
But you know, there are a lot of actors that it's a grind. They audition all the time, and you get some small percentage of commercials and work, and you know that pays for your year. And if this goes on too long, you're really, really hurting people's livelihood. But I'm very firmly on their side, right?
Oh,
I
sure,
think
yeah,
that
absolutely.
Trying to write human actors out of the equation is like, it's just cruel, you know. Just because
Well, and
AI
talking
could
about-
be made to do something doesn't mean it should.
Well, and speaking of cruel, I don't know if you saw this was before SAG went on strike. This was, you know, well into the writer's strike. But one of the, it was off the record, so they didn't give a name. But one of the executives said, so this is, I believe it was May 7th or 9th or something like that when the writers went on strike. And there was an article that came out in Variety or one of those, you know, newspapers or sites now, where one of these executives was quoted as, their plan is to wait until about October, and at that point, then people would start losing their homes and their apartments, and then they'd be willing to negotiate. I mean, think about how, you know, what a scumbag you have to be like, hey, you know, yeah, people will start losing their homes, and then they'll come crawling to us, you know.
And people will say, oh, I'm a businessman. It's business. And you're like, no, that's really cruel.
And some of these CEOs, one of the, I forget which one, has made $500 million overall in the last 5 years, you know. And there are lots of stories coming out where I wasn't familiar with this actor because I've never seen the show, but the Sabrina, you know, the teenage witch show that they made for Netflix a couple of years ago. There's a guy, I think he plays like the devil or something like that. And so he's somebody he was on the successful show on Netflix, and somebody on Twitter or Instagram, one of those things, said, yeah, you know, look at these millionaires, you know, fighting against the billionaires or whatever. And the guy was like, I'm on a successful show. He said, I'm not a millionaire. He said, I forget what he said, you know, I drive like a 10-year-old Toyota Corolla, you know. He said, I'm doing okay, but he said, I'm not a millionaire. And he said, there's a whole lot of other people that are, you know, faces that you would recognize. And just because they're on a show that's on Netflix or Prime or whatever doesn't mean they're making, you know, millions of dollars.
Oh, I know.
And, you know,
I know.
So,
I mean, you look at I don't know if it's glamorous and you think, oh, these people have it made. I'm like, not necessarily. I mean, Matt Damon's got it made.
Yeah.
Right. But
Matt Damon is speaking out for the other people,
of course.
too. I mean, he's been really good on this.
Of course. You know? And maybe, you know, I'm thinking of Ford versus Ferrari, right? Matt Damon's got it made. Christian Bale has got it made. But I bet you go down that list, there aren't too many other actors in that high-profile, successful movie that you could say have got it made. Mm-hmm. They're fortunate if they're working. They may be doing okay, but they're not anywhere near like these studio executives are. I mean,
and the model has changed so much. And I listened to an interview with a guy who was an actor I didn't recognize, but he was saying, with the typical series model where, the shows come out in the fall and they run through the spring and then, you're off in the summer or whatever. He said, well, with streaming now, they can make the show anytime. And he said with the old series model, you knew you were employed for a certain time frame. Whereas he said now you may shoot for a while and then, 6 months later or 3 months later or whatever, they want you to come back. And he said for whatever show he was doing, he said, I had to grow a beard. And he said, then we go on hiatus for however many months. And he said, I'm auditioning for other roles. And they're like, yeah, we don't want somebody with a beard. And so he said, so I couldn't work on anything else until I went back to work on my Netflix show, which I was only being paid, when we were shooting or whatever. So, yeah, I mean, all around, it's a bad system. I don't know what the public opinion is because I'm sure a lot of people do look at it as like, oh, they're all rich. But, it's but yeah, I'm definitely in support of it all. But so
writers too, man. Writers,
oh yeah.
People who work in writers' room, you're like, oh, that's a cushy job. A lot of them get paid peanuts.
No. And I've seen one of the best people that I've seen, and this was before the SAG went on strike, was shoot, I'm drawing a blank now on his name. Colin Farrell. He was on the picket line in New York, and he was saying, without writers, I don't have a job.
Right.
Because he's like, I'm not a writer, I'm an actor. And he said, so they, literally put the words in my mouth. And he said, I wouldn't be anywhere if it weren't for writers. So.
Yeah.
So, yes.
Well, Chris and Chris Talk Movies at gmail.com. That's our handle. We're on the socials. Like and subscribe. Leave us a comment, suggestion, feedback. For the next episode after this is going to be Indiana Jones and the Dial of Destiny. And then after that, we are going to do They Cloned Tyrone, which is a Netflix movie that came out with
brand new Netflix one.
Yes, with a bunch of interesting actors doing delicious character work that you've already finished and I haven't quite finished yet. So I'm definitely going to get to that, and I think you should join us for that. And just a heads up about the Indiana Jones and the Dial of Destiny, for about the first 15 minutes, we just try and review it without giving any spoilers, and then we give a clear... We've already recorded it. We give a very clear denotation that we're going to begin spoiling it, and we do. So,
yes. So there's a little time traveling happening.
A little, yeah. So, yeah. But, I mean, we got a little far afield, but it's good to talk to you as always. A nice episode.
Yeah. It's fun to talk about.
And, I mean, I think we both kind of recommend Kiss Kiss Bang Bang. It's maybe not the finest of any of these players' work, but certainly entertaining.
Yeah, a fun movie.
Yeah, so unless you have anything else to add,
I think that's it.
The two of us will talk to you all next week, baby.